it was to do what we're doing right now, he should resign in disgrace. If it was what I just said, if he did advise the president to essentially follow those couple of tactics, and the president said, nope, we're gonna do what I say, or the State Department was allowed to say, nope, we're gonna do what we say, and we did what we're doing, then he needs to be fired immediately. Or this is General Milley now, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, or he needs to resign in disgrace again. I mean, this is how bad it is, because there's no way in the world that our military leadership and those planners, we plan everything. There's no way in the world that we are this incompetent. The level of incompetence at the senior levels of our military is what's really staggering to me. That everybody sees Biden, as he gets up to the podium, and I know we'll talk a little bit about that, some of his comments, but this guy is not all there, and that's very clear. His energy levels, his spontaneity, his ability to respond to fairly simple questions, actually, and just the way he has been operating. So if General Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, advised what I advised, and Biden said, I am not going to follow that advice, then Milley should have resigned in protest. He should have resigned in protest. This was avoidable. This was absolutely avoidable. And then now that we're there, now that we're in this situation, how do you expand? And now I'm getting into sort of I want to civilianize this a little bit, Brandon, but how do we expand the perimeter around the airfield? Well, what you do is you put forces outside of the wall, but you actually, you may have to fight your way outside of the wall. This is war. War is ugly. But when I see things like this, when I see what happened today in this loss of life, and these others that are wounded, and probably some seriously wounded, and potentially we could lose another one or two from the wounds that were received, from what I understand. Then when I see something like that, I say to myself, oh my God, these poor young people, this was totally avoidable. And it just breaks my heart, as I said earlier. So there's some consequences that must be had when the dust settles. But I think the dust is already settled, and in certain cases, and I think General Milley has some decisions to make about whether or not he's going to stay on. And this also means, Secretary Austin, Secretary Blinken, Secretary of State Blinken, and even all the way up into the White House. So I'll leave it at that, because I know you have a number of other questions that you want to get to.
We have a lot of clips to play, and this will come out in a couple of the clips. You mentioned the military getting security around the airport, but we're hearing from a general, McKenzie, I believe his name is, from the Department of Defense briefing today, and then comments by Biden that they're relying, and this is actually shocking again, as a layperson, I'm going to ask questions that lay people ask, and you're the expert, but we're going to hear them talk about relying on the Taliban, a partnership with the Taliban, trusting the Taliban getting some of the security briefings from our military, relying on the Taliban to help close roads and open roads. I mean, to the average layperson, we're thinking, we're relying on the Taliban? I thought that was a terrorist organization, General.
Yeah. Two months ago, Brandon.
I think we just lost the general.
No, I'm still here.
Did we not, guys?
I'm still here. You got me?
I'm not hearing him.
I'm here.
So I'll let you answer that. I'll let you answer that question, General.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm still here. I can hear you and I can see you fine. So only a mere 2 months ago, we were dropping bombs on these guys. And think about this, Brandon. We've been capturing or killing members of the Taliban for 20 years. Do you think that they're all of a sudden going to go, oh yeah, everything's okay, guys. We'll work with you? Number one, you still there?
Yes.
Number one, there is no way in the world that we should be trusting the Taliban. Not one bit. No way. Number two, when the administration that you heard today, and Frank McKenzie, who you mentioned, that's 4-star General Frank McKenzie, who is the commander of all forces in the Middle East, Central Asia. So he's the commander of Central Command. When we talk about dealing with the Taliban, and he mentioned this new acronym, ISIS-K. Well,
yes, I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, ISIS Khorasan. So the administration is trying to use this ISIS-K as a means to deflect what is really happening. This administration decided to work with and allow the Taliban to dictate the terms and conditions of how we are going to be allowed to essentially evacuate out of the country. This is like a form of surrender. The Taliban, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, all these acronyms and all these different groups, they're all the same. They are one in the same.
That's what I thought.
For anyone, yeah. The United States intelligence community, all of these people, all the people from the White House, I'm telling you, I've been fighting these guys. I have faced them. I've defined them. And this is one ideology that we are facing. It is a form of radical Islamist ideology. And they are all one and the same. They are cut from the same cloth. Do not, for any audience, for anybody listening, do not allow yourself to be fooled by the administration going, oh yeah, it's these ISIS-K guys. It's not the Taliban.
Can you explain why they're all of a sudden calling it? I mean, Obama would call it ISIL. We would call it ISIS. Now Biden's calling it ISIS-K. Can you explain why they're adding the K?
Yeah, I mean, they're adding it as a distraction because they're trying to convince us, the American people, that this is some sort of different offshoot of a group that, just suddenly popped up on the screen to the American people. That's the propaganda of this, is they're trying to create a diversion, a distraction. I'm serious about this. That's what this administration is doing. When I heard Frank McKenzie, General McKenzie's speech today in an afternoon presser at the Pentagon, and again, he's the commander of all these forces, and he gave a speech. And I was sitting there and I'm saying, oh my God, this speech was written by somebody in the White House. I don't think he believed a word of it. And if he did, then shame on him. And he's another one that needs to go. We've got to be and sadly, we don't have an Abraham Lincoln in office, or a George Washington in office, or a Donald Trump in office. The incompetency of our senior flag officers that are in this chain of command, and frankly, probably a few others who names aren't as visible as General McKenzie or General Milley. There's a lot of reckoning that needs to go on in the military, because the level of incompetency is staggering.
Let me play, General. I think we have a clip from General McKenzie today. If this is the one I'm thinking of, we have two of them. Let me play this one and have you comment. You're not getting the audio for that?
I'm not. What does he generally say? Because I watched it. What was that? I hope the audience saw it.
What he's talking about is they're reaching out to the Taliban. They're sharing information with the Taliban. They've even asked the Taliban to secure certain roads and things for them. I mean, this is...
Yeah. Okay. So I remember that part. So I was stunned, irritated, all the emotions that you can imagine as I was hearing him say that. And I'm saying to myself, okay, so what you're admitting to is that we've surrendered. We've surrendered to the Taliban. And we are now in the sort of the Alamo. And the Alamo in this case is called H-Kaya, is what he kept saying today, H-Kaya. It's an airport. It's the Kabul International Airport. And we are in sort of the last bastion of this Alamo in Afghanistan. And we're trying to get out of there with our without putting our tail between our legs. So part of what I'm really saddened by is that we are now pretending, and we're telling the American people that, and we're lying to the American people that we're dealing with the Taliban. There's no dealing with the Taliban. There's no way that we should be dealing with the Taliban. We should be destroying the Taliban. We should be going after number one priority right now. So the next step, because I've already just addressed what should have happened. What we should be doing now is telling them, we are going to stay here as long as it takes to get the last American citizen out. And, period. the Taliban was still holding hostages, Brandon. The Taliban had U.S. hostages, at least one that I'm aware of, that they've been holding on to for a year. So there's no way in the world that we should be trusting the Taliban. The only reason we're dealing with the Taliban is because Joe Biden surrendered to the Taliban. He surrendered. And that's a shame. That's the reality of war. If you decide that you are going to lose, there's no way in the world. And like I stated the other day in a op-ed that I wrote, but yet we still have options. But what I got out of President Biden's press conference today, or his speech today, was that he's not giving up on his decision to get out of there as fast as we can, with whatever we can, and then to potentially leave 1,000 or 1,500 or a number that we don't know, but we know it's over 1,000 American citizens behind. And I understand from good sources that are Afghans as well as Americans that many of those people aren't in Kabul. Some of them are in other parts of the country.
Wow. General, I think we have got the clip of McKinsey now. Let's roll that in the control room, please.
So in terms of practical things that we're doing, okay, again, we've reached out to the Taliban. We've told them you need to continue to push out the security perimeter. We've identified some roads that we would like for them to close. They've identified that they will be willing to close those roads because we assess the threat of a suicide-borne vehicle threat is high right now. So in terms of...
Wow. So we're going to rely on the Taliban to close roads and monitor roads.
And he said that today. We assessed that a suicide, I mean, buddy, a suicide vest or a suicide bomb, not a vest. It may have been a suicide vest, but the bomb that exploded today was a huge, huge bomb, which had to get through the Taliban, okay? So the Taliban enabled today's bombing. If anybody tells you otherwise, if anybody from the government, anybody from the intelligence community tries to tell you otherwise, they're lying through their teeth. And the intel community is going to politicize itself as they have done for so many years now. And they're going to try to help shape the narrative that the White House needs to cover their rear ends and get out of this thing as cleanly as they can possibly get out of. But war is not clean. The enemy has a vote. And today, the enemy voted. And the vote that they gave was to say, not only are we going to control your exit, we're going to dictate other aspects of your exit, and we're going to continue to take little pieces of your rear end, from you as you go out as you fight your way off of Kaya, off of H Kaya, as he kept saying. I mean, I wish that you could maybe put that link, put the whole link of his thing on your frankspeech.com or lindelltv.com, so those people that couldn't see it today can watch it, because people need to watch that. This is a leader, supposed leader, that has responsibility for all the men and women in Afghanistan right now. And that includes the citizens.
I think we have one more clip from him, guys, of General McKinsey. Cue me when we can play that. We'll play it and then have General Flynn comment on it. Give me a thumbs up when you're ready for that. So, General, again, this is really hard for the lay people to understand, because as a layperson, I was told by some military people that we have a standard policy of how to get out of countries. Now, the acronym I was told is NEO. Does that mean anything to you?
Yeah, it means a lot to me. And I know, and NEO is non-combatant evacuation operations. That means people who are not military are evacuated, and it's an operation, right? It's a military operation. NEO, non-combatant evacuation operations. A non-combatant is anybody that's not military, right? So people from the State Department, contractors, any American citizens. I have been involved in them, and I've been involved in big ones, not like this. I have planned them, and I have supported them throughout my career. So I know a lot about non-combatant evacuation operations. There are two types. There is one when it's in a permissive environment, meaning it's like after a hurricane, you do a NEO in Haiti, right? And we have a hurricane in Haiti, it wipes out a bunch of things. So we get down there, we help in a very permissive environment, meaning there's no enemy shooting at you or trying to kill you while you're doing it, and you're able to evacuate citizens, right? So that's an example where you have a hurricane or you have a tornado and you have a NEO, you have a non-combatant evacuation operation, not under threat, and you're able to safely pull people out of the danger zone and bring them to a safety zone, right? Well, this is a NEO of an extraordinary level, and non-combatant evacuation operation of an extraordinary level, and it is in a non-permissive environment, meaning that it is a threatening environment where you have an enemy and an enemy at the gates. That's how close they are. They're not out into the mountains. They're not out, miles and miles away behind some set of walls. They are at our gates. The enemy is right there. This is an Alamo-like situation. And today was like, it was exactly like that, where they took not only, a shot at the gate, they blew up the gate. And now they caused us to have to examine whether or not we can even continue to fly aircraft out of there. And the White House and Frank and General McKenzie, they kept touting how many people they've gotten out. We've gotten 100,000 people out in the last, 2 months. And we've flown 19 sorties. And he threw out all kinds of numbers. He talked about, we have Apache helicopters on the airfield. And, we're ready. Well, if they were ready, if we had all this stuff, then why did that happen this morning? Why did that happen? Why did this attack happen? So NEO is a very known type of operation by the military. We do it in permissive, meaning no threat, and we know how to do it when there is a threat. And in this case, if in a threatening environment, one of the first things that you do is you clear the area completely. I mean, you clear it out at least as far as the distance of what we call small arms fire or mortars, right? Which is quite a ways.
Right.
So you have to clear the area back so that you can bring the people in safely, and they can sit on the airfield until they get manifested onto an airplane. Because these guys have rocket propelled grenades that we gave them. They have mortars that we gave them. They have machine guns that they took from us. They can fire these things just over those walls right now. They can throw grenades. We gave them grenades. So I hate to say it like this, but this White House has surrendered to the Taliban. There's no other way to look at this.
But you wouldn't know that listening to Biden today, because he says, we're going to track you down and we will not forgive. Let's get to that clip. But first, let's go to this about a 2-minute clip from General McKenzie saying some of the things General Flynn has said that he wants you to hear, that we can post later at frankspeech.com. But General Flynn wants you to hear this full statement, and then we'll have General Flynn comment before we start playing the clips by Biden and having General Flynn respond to those clips. Here's General McKenzie today in the Department of Defense briefing.
We're doing everything we can in concert with our Department of State partners to reach out to them and to help them leave if they want to leave. And remember, not everybody wants to leave. Yesterday, we brought in over 500 American citizens. It would be difficult to overestimate the number of unusual challenges and competing demands that our forces on the ground have faced. The threat to our forces, particularly from ISIS-K, is very real, as we have seen today. I would also like to express the sense of profound pride I have in the creative, determined, and professional way that our forces have overcome those challenges and to deliver the results that we talked about in my opening portion of the remarks, the number of people that we've been able to extract from Afghanistan. It would also be remiss of me not to mention the tremendous contributions of our many coalition partners, and they stood with us on the ground at HKIA, and also the interagency and international partners who supported the evacuation. The many soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen who supported this operation downrange across the Central Command, the European Command, and the Northern Command areas of responsibility. Moreover, this evacuation could simply not have been done without the amazing flexibility of U.S. Transportation Command and the airlift provided by the United States Air Force. No other military in the world has anything like it. I'd also like to thank the host nations that have generously provided access to their facilities for the processing, the care, and the feeding of our evacuees. I also need to acknowledge the temporary suffering that some of our evacuees have had to endure. Please know that we continue to execute our number one mission, which is to get as many American citizens and other evacuees as possible out of Afghanistan. We also continue to expand the capacity at our intermediate facilities to ensure safe, sanitary, and humane conditions for our evacuees, while continuing to look for ultimate ways to expedite their processing and ultimate transfer to the United States or other destinations. I'd like to close out my remarks today by just taking a moment to describe the heroism that our Marines, soldiers, and sailors are exhibiting as they screen the people who are coming onto the airfield. This is close-up work. The breath of the person you are searching is upon you. While we have overwatch in place, we still have to touch the clothes of the person that's coming in. I think you all can appreciate the courage and the dedication that is necessary to do this job and to do it time after time. Please remember that we have screened over 104,000 people. Finally, I'd like to offer my profound condolences to the families of our servicemen and women and Afghan civilians who lost their lives today. We have put more than 5,000 U.S. service members at risk to save as many civilians as we can. It's a noble mission, and today we have seen firsthand how dangerous that mission is. ISIS will not deter us from accomplishing the mission, I can assure you of that. All Americans can and should be proud of the men and women of the armed forces who are facing these dangers head on with their international partners and all our other friends that are with us. And we appreciate your thoughts and prayers for all our service members who are carrying on this mission today. John, I'm now ready to take questions.
General Flynn, would you please respond to that?
It's really hard to respond to that. I mean, first of all, that is a prepared statement that I guarantee the White House, they probably prepared a lot of those remarks. That does not sound. I know Frank McKenzie. I worked closely with him in the Pentagon for a year, and on an almost daily basis. Those are not words that I would normally hear from a guy like Frank McKenzie. Frank, if you asked General McKenzie, he'd probably say, "Oh no, those are my words. I wrote that." He accepted what he had to say, and you could tell that he was. To me, it was like it just wasn't authentic. And so for him to say he didn't talk about the enemy, he didn't talk about the Taliban, he frankly didn't spend enough time talking about the lives that were lost,
exactly.
nor the family. In fact, he barely touched on that, nor the families that are going to be devastated when they are notified. Somebody did ask him later on in the Q&A that he did have, well, have the families been notified yet? And he said, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but he said, that's not really that's not my thing. I don't really know, what's going on there. That's somebody else that's doing that. I mean, how dare he? So again, there's a message. So let me pull this back to a little bit more strategic level, because what is happening, the White House is trying to find the right place to place blame. Okay, the right point to place blame. So you're going to see, and the president did this in his speech tonight too, you're going to see a diversion where he's either going to blame the military or they're going to blame Trump. And in General McKenzie's case, his subtle thing was to focus on ISIS versus focusing on the Taliban. Well, if the Taliban have been controlling the roads, the road network, the airfield, the areas outside the airfield, and then back to the commentary earlier about what's the difference between these guys? There's no difference. When that bomb hit today, I knew right then and there, as soon as I was notified that happened, I said, oh my God, these guys are going to put so much more pressure on us. And the real message is get out and get out on our conditions. And meaning the Taliban, right? The enemy, Taliban, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. You can call them what you want there, General McKenzie and the White House, but don't try to fool the American people thinking that, well, this is just some offshoot, okay? And for General McKenzie to also parrot this business about, because he talked a little bit about how many hundreds of thousands, how many thousands of people we've gotten out, how many sorties we're running every day, meaning how many aircraft are flying out of that airfield every day, the numbers of equipment that we have, the numbers of people that we're processing. Baloney. All I want to know is that the American leadership will not leave one American left behind in Afghanistan. I could care less about the nearly $100 billion of equipment. I care less about the equipment. What I care about is American citizens put in harm's way overseas because of something that we have done. And Frank said, in fact, in his statement, he said, we're going to, I'm putting my words in until this point. He says, we're going to rescue as many Americans, we're going to get as many Americans out of Afghanistan as we can. He said, and he said it twice, as many Americans out of Afghanistan as we can. And that, to me, that's unacceptable. Unacceptable. I would say, if I was his boss, I would say, as many. What does that mean? You mean like 10 more, 100 more? What if we have 1,500? What if we have 2,000? You're going to get them all out. My finger would be in his chest, and I would tell him, you're going to get them all out. We're going to stay there as long as we can until we've rescued, or recovered, because recovery means something else, right, Brandon?
Right.
Or recovered every American that we can possibly, rescue or recover out of Afghanistan. And we're going to do whatever it takes. And if the Taliban gets in our way, kill them.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. That's what I would say.
Let's go to the first clip of the Biden press conference today. Roll that clip, please.
A tough day. This evening in Kabul, as you all know, terrorists attacked that we've been talking about and worried about, that the intelligence community has assessed, has undertaken an attack by a group known as ISIS-K. Took the lives of American service members standing guard at the airport and wounded several others seriously. He had also wounded a number of civilians, and civilians were killed as well. I've been engaged all day in constant contact with the military commanders here in Washington, the Pentagon, as well as in Afghanistan and Doha. And my commanders here in Washington in the field have been on this with great detail, and you've had a chance to speak to some so far. The situation on the ground is still evolving, and I'm constantly being updated. These American service members who gave their lives, it's an overused word, but it's totally appropriate here, were heroes. Heroes who've been engaged in a dangerous, selfless mission to save the lives of others. They're a part of an airlift, an evacuation effort unlike any seen in history.
Something like we've never seen before. Well, some people remember Vietnam, don't they, General Flynn?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just Vietnam. It's everything that's going on with this thing. Here's what I would tell people that are listening and paying attention to this. I mean, we have, and I actually that press conference done by Biden, the way I felt, I was frightened. It was a frightening type of statement or set of statements and answers to questions that were totally set up, and trying to. I mean, I felt bad for Biden as a human being, because he's just incapable of withstanding the pressure of this type of a job.
He looks weak.
But he looks very weak. I mean, for all the people out there that are watching this and think that there's going to be, some fairy dust sprinkled on America and we're going to suddenly recover from this nightmare that we have been a part of, get over it. Get over it now. And do I have all the answers? No, I don't have all the answers. Does a Mike Lindell have all the answers? No, but are we fighting for the truth? Yes, we're fighting for the truth. For what happened, what is happening and unraveling in Afghanistan, and frankly, the alliances that are breaking apart or will break apart because of this. And when I say alliances like NATO, alliances that we have out in the Pacific with countries like Japan and South Korea and the Philippines and Australia. I mean, these alliances were part of, there was roughly 50 nations, 50 nations that were part of the alliance in Afghanistan from all over the world. So, I mean, these people are these nations, and rightly so, are really upset because this unilateral decision made by the White House, I guess by Biden, to depart Afghanistan in the way that they have done this, leaving Bagram, as we talked about Bagram earlier, trying to do this out of Kabul, getting our military out first, and then all of a sudden you had to bring the military back because it was such a poor decision. I mean, there's no fairy dust coming, folks. There's no cavalry coming. But do we have options? You know, what could we do? Well, we could actually continue to get our people out of there, and we could still get the heck out of Dodge in a much, much different manner. I am one of the, you know, for all the people that have followed my plight or went back and examined my career, I mean, I am so anti-war, but I loved serving our military. I loved serving our country. And I did it because I knew that there's a lot of people that won't stand up to serve the country in that way. And that's okay. That's okay because people serve in all sorts of ways. But that was in my fiber. That was in my fabric. I decided to join the military. And if they wanted to send me, if the country decided to send us off to war, you know, so be it. That's what I was okay with that. I could live with that or die with that if that was going to be my fate. But what I'm telling people is that we do not have to be like this. We do not have to go through this kind of tragedy. And frankly, the recovery out of this is going to be very, very difficult. And
because aren't China and Iran and North Korea
Yeah.
and Russia watching this weakness?
Yeah, those are the big winners. China's really the big winner in all this. I mean, there's a geopolitical and a geostrategic component to all this where, you know, you have Afghanistan is surrounded by five nuclear countries: Iran, Russia, China, India, and Pakistan. So that's what surrounds that neighborhood. It's a tough neighborhood. And I have been in all of those countries except Iran. So what I'm telling you is that this is a very difficult neighborhood. The geopolitics behind it is you know, there's reasons to stay and there's reasons not to stay. I mean, this is 75, 80 years after World War II, and we're still in Europe, right? And we destroyed the Nazis in World War II, but we had to stay there because we had to make sure that certain things didn't happen between the various European nations, and also the creation of and the expansion of a NATO alliance. So there's a lot of geostrategic things that are happening, and we are, I mean, like I said, this was totally unavoidable. Are there options? There are always options. The United States of America always has options, but those options have to be brought to bear by the right leadership. We do not have the right leadership.
Let's go to clip number 2 of Biden, his press conference this evening. Clip 2 for General Flynn to respond to. Roll it.
Jill and I, our hearts ache, like I'm sure all of you do as well, for all those Afghan families who lost loved ones, including small children, or been wounded in this vicious attack. And we're outraged as well as heartbroken.
Well, we are outraged and we are heartbroken, but did they not see this coming, General Flynn? Surely their intel told them this was going to happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the other thing. I mean, we've been actually hearing from these various press conferences and people paying attention, they've been talking about this for months, that these sorts of things were going to happen. And that the Taliban, if we left, the Taliban was going to return. And obviously, you know, we've seen the clips of the president saying, well, you know, I've been told that they weren't going to be able to return for a long time. And then all of a sudden, you know, they come back in less than 4 days, under 72 hours, I think, and took over Kabul. So we've had a lot of confusion about it. But what was known for months was that when we decided to leave, when we pulled out our last troops, the Taliban was going to resurge and come back and take over. And that, you know, there was a prayer out there that the Afghan army would stand up and the Afghan police would stand up. And both of those elements, the police and the Afghan army, they've lost a lot of guys. They've lost a lot of men and women, particularly men. I mean, hundreds and thousands of losses of life. So all of this was known. Back to what I said about the military tactics of what should you do, knowing this information, knowing that those are the assumptions that you make. Then what steps do you take to get out of there and to get American citizens out of there as cleanly and as safely as possible in a timeline that we dictate, not that is dictated to us. The Taliban is dictating this timeline to us. The Taliban said, you lost, we won, get out. That's what they're saying. And what is this administration doing? basically putting our American, in this case, the American tail between our legs because of Joe Biden, and we're leaving. And I mean, in one of his speeches, I think it was last week, towards the middle or towards the end of last week, he's actually talking about trading with the Taliban. He actually mentioned the word, well, maybe we can trade, maybe we can develop different, relationships with them, and maybe there's a trading partnership in the future. I mean, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but it was close to that. I mean, that's nuts. That's crazy thinking.
Asinine. Let's roll
Crazy
clip 3,
thinking.
please.
To those who carried out this attack, as well as anyone who wishes America harm, know this: we will not forgive. We will not forget. We will hunt you down and make you pay. I will defend our interests and our people with every measure at my command.
I don't think they're scared. We will hunt you down. We will find you. I mean, he will use every measure at his command. He had the chance to use every measure at his command, as you've already stated. But do you really think he's going to track these people down?
Yeah, they're not afraid. I'll tell you what, I know this. I know this enemy. They are not afraid. They are not afraid of this president. Believe me, this president does not have a stick, nor does he have a carrot. He's got nothing right now, and he's put the lives of men and women in the military at risk. He's put certainly over 1,000 Americans who are still in behind enemy lines at risk, and so they are not afraid. And for him to say that when he has all the capabilities, he's got all the capabilities. We're not being allowed to apply those. America is not being allowed to apply those capabilities. And when I say apply them, those are primarily military capabilities. So our military is not being allowed to apply those. Obviously, it's stunningly obvious if anybody's even paying remotely attention to this.
Let's roll clip 4.
Go
with 4.
Over the past few weeks, I know many of you are probably tired of hearing me say it. We've been made aware by our intelligence community that the ISIS-K, an arch enemy of the Taliban, people who were freed when both those prisons were opened, has been planning a complex set of attacks on the United States personnel and others. This is why, from the outset, I've repeatedly said this mission was extraordinarily dangerous, and why I've been so determined to limit the duration of this mission. As General McKenzie said, this is why our mission was designed, this is the way it was designed to operate under severe stress and attack. We've known that from the beginning.
This is the way it was designed to operate. Intel told us that ISIS-K is the arch enemy of the Taliban, and they were planning attacks. Well, then, if they knew this in advance, how did this all happen? I mean, again, ISIS-K is the arch enemy of the Taliban. I'm not sure I believe that, General Flynn.
No, I don't believe it, and nobody should believe that. Nobody should believe that. And you know what you'll ask if somebody actually asked a legitimate question, like you're asking about, what's the difference between these guys of anybody in the White House? None of them would be able to say it. And if they said, oh yes, these guys are from here and these guys are from here, this is a radicalized Islamist ideology. That's what we're facing. You can put whatever acronym you want. These guys coordinate, they cooperate, and they fight in a very coherent manner. The Taliban and the Haqqani network and the ISIS, all of the various characters, those that are from the Middle East, those that are from North Africa, these are different parts of this radicalized Islamist ideological group, and they are all massed right now in Afghanistan. And I will tell you, there's probably a call to arms going around the radicalized Islamist world to come to Afghanistan, because it's going to be a heyday for us here. That's how bad this is. And that's what will happen. That is what is happening. And so these networks of like-minded radicalized Islamists, they are working together. if the Taliban didn't want that bomb to go off today, those bombs, plural, it wouldn't have gone off. And for the intelligence community to pretend, or for Biden to pretend, and that clip that you just stated, a little bit, there's a little subtle message there. You know, basically General McKenzie said, meaning it's General McKenzie's problem. The way that Biden, in a very subtle way, avoided responsibility for this disaster today was, to me, was really the big tell, the big message out of today. He kept pushing the decisions, or the responsibility, to somebody else, and where he was pushing it to was to the military. So if I were Frank McKenzie, I'd watch my rear end, because they're gonna put the blame on somebody. And frankly, you should resign. He should resign, but Biden should as well. But none of that's going to happen. None of that's going to happen. These people are going to seek a way out. They're going to hope that the media doesn't cover any of this. And in another week or two, this will all be passed. And now we're going to start to see, and I mean this, we're going to start to see other things popping up. Like, we're going to see more noise about COVID lockdowns. We're going to be seeing more noise about vaccine passports. We're going to see more noise about Nancy Pelosi's insurrection crucifixion. And the media is going to start covering that stuff. And they're going to try to avoid the disaster that's going on in Afghanistan. And what's going to happen is we're going to leave hundreds, if not a 1,000 or more American citizens behind. And the military and the White House and people like Jen Psaki are going to be, they're going to be saying, well, look at how many airplanes we flew out. Look at how many people we flew out. Look at all the numbers, to try to divert attention away from the disastrous ending to 20 years of war. And I will tell you, that chapter may end, Brandon, and for the listeners, that this chapter of this history of America may end, but this book is not yet finished. Okay,
let's roll.
And go ahead.
Let's roll clip 5.
Operating under severe stress and attack. We've known that from the beginning. And as I've been in constant contact with our senior military leaders, and I mean constant, round the clock, and our commanders on the ground and throughout the day, they made it clear that we can and we must complete this mission, and we will. And that's what I've ordered them to do. We will not be deterred by terrorists. We will not let them stop our mission. We will continue the evacuation. I've also ordered my commanders to develop operational plans to strike ISIS-K assets, leadership, and facilities. We will respond with force and precision at our time, at the place we choose, in the moment of our choosing. Here's what you need to know. These ISIS terrorists will not win. We will rescue the Americans in there. We will get our Afghan allies out, and our mission will go on. America will not be intimidated, and I have the utmost confidence in our brave service members who continue to execute this mission with courage and honor to save lives and get Americans, our partners, our Afghan allies out of Afghanistan.
General, you want to comment, please?
Frightening. I mean, he could barely finish some of the sentences because he can't breathe.
That's right.
You know, he said, he used phrases like constant contact, not deterred, we'll complete our mission. So is our mission complete by leaving 1,000 U.S. citizens, or leaving one American citizen? That mission won't be complete. So is that going to happen? Is this all going to happen by the 31st of December? He said, we will not be, or I'm sorry, by August 31 August, I'm sorry. So is our mission complete when we leave even one American citizen behind? I don't think so. I don't think it can. In fact, I know, as a military guy and as a person who's been responsible for planning the rescue of U.S. citizens overseas. So that mission is not going to be complete. The constant contact, I'm in constant contact. If he's in constant contact with, he looked like he had just gotten out of bed. I mean, this president showed no leadership, no energy, and his desire to inspire, and his need to actually inspire America, if that was part of what he was trying to do, was underwhelming. In fact, I'm actually more concerned about our country today than I've ever been, honestly,
Absolutely.
with the guy in charge.
Absolutely. Let's roll clip 6.
May God bless you all, and may God protect the troops and all those standing watch for America. We have so much to do. It's within our capacity to do it. We just have to remain steadfast. Steadfast. We will complete our mission, and we will continue after our troops have withdrawn to find means by which we can find any American who wishes to get out of Afghanistan. We will find them and we will get them out. Ladies and gentlemen, they gave me a list here. The first person I was instructed to call on was Kelly O'Donnell of NBC.
Okay, so first of all, he's got to be instructed who to call on. But notice, General Flynn, he said after our troops are out, then we'll go and get any Americans.
Then we're gonna go back in. I mean, that's why this is nuts. This is a person in charge of this country that should not be in charge of this country. There's no way in the world that, as they try to force down our throats, that 80 million people voted for this guy.
Yeah.
No way in the world. And that's why I say elections have a consequence, and fake elections could have a grave consequence for this country as we continue to shift towards our own ideology away from democracy towards socialism and communism.
Absolutely.
I mean, just listen to the tone of the president's voice and the way he carried himself there today. And then, the whole business about I've been instructed to call on this list of people. And the reason why, Brandon, and having been there, okay, so having been in that environment in the White House and having been in other very senior leader environments like that. So the reason why he was instructed was because the people that he called on, with the exception of one young guy at the end from Fox, the people that he called on, they all had questions that were pre-prepared by the White House. And I guarantee during the course of the hour or two prior to that press conference, Biden went over all of those questions. He was given those questions. He went through canned answers for them, so he knew how to do that. That's how they operate. That's how
he had a notebook and he was flipping his pages, I think, to find who to call on, what the question was going to be, and what his answer was to be. Let's roll the clip number 7, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's been some criticism, even from people in your party, about the dependence on the Taliban to secure the perimeter of the airport. Do you feel like there was a mistake made in that regard?
No, I don't. Look, I think General McKenzie handled this question very well. The fact is that we're in a situation, we inherited a situation, particularly since, as we all know, that the Afghan military collapsed 11 days before, in 11 days, that it is in the interest of, as McKenzie said, in the interest of the Taliban, that, in fact, ISIS-K does not metastasize beyond what it is, number one. And number two, it's in their interest that we are able to leave on time, on target. And as a consequence of that, the major things we've asked them, moving back the perimeter, giving more space between the wall, stopping vehicles from coming through, etc., searching people coming through. It is not what you'd call a tightly commanded, regimented operation like the U.S. is, the military is, but they're acting in their interest. And so, by and large, and I've asked this same question to military on the ground, whether or not it's a useful exercise. No one trusts them. We're just counting on their self-interest to continue to generate their activities. And it's in their self-interest that we leave when we said, and that we get as many people out as we can. Like I said, even in the midst of everything happened today.
All right, we're going to have to cut that one short due to time, but he says we inherited this, or blaming it on Trump, and then he went on to talk about how they're relying on the Taliban, and we're going to try to get as many Americans out as we can. So he's saying the same thing. In other words, they're planning on leaving Americans behind, and they're depending on the Taliban to help with security. And when they did, look what happened today, General.
Yeah, I mean, the handling of this has been an unmitigated disaster. He is shifting blame. He's, I inherited this. Hey, buddy, you were the vice president for 8 years, and you were part of the decision to increase our force presence over there when we didn't have that. I think we went from about 25,000 or 30,000 in 2009 when you and your buddy Obama took over, and we went upwards of about 120 to 130,000. So unbelievable to say, and he's going to do this. They're going to do this. They're going to shift blame out of the White House, and they're going to shift it back as much as they can, try to blame Trump. And the second area is, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to start to see the fingers being pointed at the military and the debacle that the military didn't have the right security. The military didn't do this. Frank McKenzie didn't do that. If I were Frank McKenzie, first I'd resign. I would have resigned, tomorrow morning he should resign. Actually, there's potential for other things, but he should resign. But the blame is going to occur, and boy, I'm going to tell you, it ain't going to happen at the White House. They're not going to take responsibility for it. And the last thing, Brandon, is this business about ISIS-K. He mentioned ISIS-K again. Don't fall for that. Do not fall for this nonsense, this noise that they're trying to distract us from, that it's ISIS-K. This is about a radical Islamist ideology that they view America as the devil, okay, when in fact they're the devil.
Absolutely. General Flynn, give us your website, please, in conclusion.
Yeah, you can go to americasfuture.net, and we are deeply involved in the audits, particularly the one out in Arizona, but in other audits. And we're also involved in helping young people who are being told they have to get this shot to attend college. And so we're involved in some legal battles there. And we're also involved in some legal battles with the Pentagon, stating that people in the military have to get the shot as well. This is devastating. So there's that, and some other objectives that we choose to support. But americasfuture.net, and really appreciate that.
Thank you for sitting in for.
Have me on anytime.
Thank you for sitting in for Mike Lindell tonight.
Yep. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you, and thank you for your service and your time tonight. General Flynn tonight. I'm sorry we didn't